Boy, you know, I look. You're going to see. I got this problem. I am really into analyzing everything and every interaction and seeing why things and people are successful. And one of the reasons why I am here, and David talked about it, is he is a great non-judgmental validator of who you are as a human being. And he just got you all to do it as well. So thank you for the non-judgmental validation. I can only really go down from here. I am extremely humbled. Matter of fact, the older you get in life, I think the more amazingly it is that you realize, wow, I have so few skills. And what I've also noticed is that you generally, the people I've met in my career, in my life, the ones that are really, really good at what they do, they're generally really, really good at what they do in an area that they really sucked at some point in their life. And hence, I'm here. And so it's funny, I'll give you a little bit of framing. I know that we're streaming live, and so I had a kind of twink, okay, am I going to say anything that's going to get me in trouble at work? So I got to make sure I'm taking care of that. Oh, caveat, I am here representing myself. My thoughts and opinions represent my own and not that of the government. This is a total volunteer thing I did, and yeah, David's really good. I went through 3 canceled flights yesterday just to make it in last night, and I'm flying back in a couple hours. Oh, I know, sympathy. It's a great theme. When he contacted me, I found out, wow, I've been building communities. I didn't know that. And matter of fact, a couple years ago, I had a friend that's a social engineer. He helps train penetration testers, and I found out I'm a social engineer as well. You find out all these things along the way. I'm going to give you some framing. I'm going to talk really briefly about what I've done for the last part of my career. Because I really want to frame things for you. Because what I want to add to what David said, I really want to emphasize with what I want you to walk away from with me is a set of tools that are very actionable. And also, most importantly, with this room right here, you all are doing this already. A lot of times when I'm speaking with different groups, they maybe are, maybe not. They didn't realize they were, but you all are doing exactly what I'm going to be talking about. So I want to emphasize and highlight to you those things that you're doing well already, and I'm going to give you some labels and some meanings on things. I know with the speaker lineups you have today, they're going to really probably dive down into the weeds a little more and things. So I'm going to give you some overarching methodologies about why you're effective already. And also give it some label and some meaning so maybe you can understand why you might not be effective in other areas, but so you can enhance it. For me, you know, y'all followed all the Twitters and all the interviews and everything, so you got a good understanding of my background. You know, I went to the Naval Academy. I aspired to be this great, Patton-like guy, and I quickly found out when I got into the Naval Academy Marine Corps, I am one of those non-natural born leaders. I absolutely sucked at it. I was tormented really well. The Marines did a great job of being a bad leader out of me. And because if you want to be successful at anything that you're charged to do, I wanted to be good at it, and I really started finding out, wow, I lack the skills naturally. Now, we all have skills in different areys. That's one thing, I think it's the title of one of my books I want to write is, my wife came up with it. It says, we're all working on something. And mine happens to be here, yours happen to be here, and so, celebrate and emphasize the strengths you already have, understand where you might not have strengths, and emphasize that. So my strengths did not lie in influence and leadership whatsoever, but that's what I was called to do. And so I'm going to be labeling those things for you all, because for the last, 4 or 5 years, I led our behavioral analysis program for counterintelligence in the FBI, which is, there's lots of behavioral entities around in law enforcement and stuff. What my team does and did, and what I really focused on primarily is trust strategies. I deal with normal people. I deal with spies and all, espionage and all that kind of fun stuff. So I'm dealing with really intelligent people that are really fall within the normal parameters of human behavior. And so what my job is to create trust, because if you want someone to confess to something that they did, they're not going to confess anyone they don't trust. If you want someone to work for you, recruit them in any way, they're not going to do that unless they trust you to some degree. So all I've ever done is strategize trust. And if you want to get good at strategizing trust, you have to understand what you're doing. It just can't be subjective. And so I had a fortunate benefit of doing that. And what happened was when I started labeling these things in my life of what I was actually doing, I started sensitizing myself to it, and I started recognizing absolutely everywhere. And that's why, when I started out, I always ask, anyone when I'm going to go somewhere is, well, who's my audience? How do you want me to frame it? Same content. I'm going to use a few anecdotes that are from personal, work, you name it. It's all the same, because when you're strategizing trust, anytime you have two human beings at least interacting and you want to move something forward, you want to influence, you want to have goals and priorities, you have to have trust. And so if you can be conscious about it and you can pre-plan it, the better you are. And also, when you start just embedding these behaviors into your own personality and get some muscle memory on it. I mean, I'm constantly practicing. I am constantly practicing because now it's completely natural for me, to suspend my own ego, make it all about you, find all about your priorities, and wrap my content that we're going to talk about around your goals and objectives. It's really kind of natural. Last night, I had San Francisco's a different kind of place now, and I live in Virginia. So I get into the Hilton last night, and I was stalked. It was really cool. He had no idea who he was probably stalking, but it was kind of fascinating. So I get on the elevator, and this other guy gets on the elevator with me. He's kind of medium dressed, about my height, and he just looks at me like this. He goes, "Oh man, how's your day?" Hey, human beings want to engage me. I love it. It's just something I really enjoy doing. I take it as a great science experiment, and to find, because the one thing I love about like this whole audience. Everyone has a very unique story. I am a complete junkie when it comes to reality shows. Not the Jersey Girl stuff. I'm Gold Rush Alaska, Deadliest Catch. I like the gritty ones where you see human beings, and everyone's got a fascinating story. And so I love finding out the fascinating story about how it is you became who you are. And that'll come into what I'm talking about later too, context. But anyway, so he wants to engage. I'm like, "Go, game on, excellent." And I said, I actually said it's pretty crappy. It's a long day, 3 canceled flights, all the boo-hoos I got. And so he goes, "Oh, mine was too." So I said, "Oh, he wants to talk." I bounced back to him. I said, so what made your day bad?" And he goes, "Well, I just checked out of the hotel a little while ago, and they're being real jerks about it. I was in a really bad car accident downstairs. My wife's, she's at a medical facility, and I don't have any cash for this, and I need like another $8." And I was like, "Wow, I'm being hit up already. This is good. Good story." Now, I said, "That's a shame." Got off the elevator, went to my room. But the funny thing, here's what I was doing though. I mean, I get to my room and I'm strategizing, how can I help this panhandler do better? What did he do wrong? He had a goal. That's the first thing, when you're doing this is, help them discover what they want. And the second thing is help them achieve it. This is I started out with my little book, 10 techniques to developing quick rapport. I then refined it to the 5 steps I'm going to talk to you all about today. And I really took those 5 things and I boiled it down to these 2 simple questions. All I ever do now is I try to help you discover what you're trying to achieve. What's your goal? I do this, and I tell you what, where the best practice is? You all know it. Where do you help people generally most every single day? Work. I spend most of my day counseling. I mean, it's because there's always conflict going on. There's always different things. People deal with their own teenagers, their own personal matters. There's always something going on. And I never have solutions. I just ask questions because, people can come up with, the solutions on their own because then they have the empowerment of choice. They own it. But anyway, I love starting out with help them discover what they want. The core of it, because I remember, just at work, everyone says, "Well, what's his motivation?" His motivation is money. Just give him some money. I was like, "No, that's not a motivation. That's the thing that helps him with what he wants to achieve. What's he trying to buy with the money? Is there insecurities there? Is he trying to, show some flashy stuff? Is he into cars? I mean, there's always a core root. I like trying to get down to the core root and understanding, help them discover what they want. And then the most important thing is help them achieve it. Because then who's it all about? It's all about them. Absolutely. Our brains, and I'll get a little bit into this, I know the other speakers will too, our brains reward us for things that are in our best interests. And so I strategize that all the time. So I thought last night, what could this guy have done to increase his probability of me giving him $8? He used sympathy as a theme, which is fantastic. As human beings, we're hardwired for sympathy and giving sympathy because we expect that ancient man, if we gave sympathy and all of a sudden we got hurt and injured, someone would reciprocate that. So reciprocal altruism kicks in, so that's effective. So he used sympathy as a theme, which is good, but he upped the bar. $8 is a lot of money, and he didn't solve the top 3 questions. Who are you? What do you want when you're leaving? Those things you always got to address, right off the bat if you want to establish trust. And he didn't do that. He told me what he wanted. He wanted $8, but not much else. What kind of things do you think he could have done, which would have engaged me a bit more? Tell the truth, open, honest, and willing. That is big with me. If you want to lose trust, be fake, But yeah, absolutely, tell the truth. But I didn't know he wasn't telling the truth. You never know. What else? That was good. What? Ask for less, minimization. That could have been more effective, absolutely. Ask about me. And that's it. That's part of it, yeah? Ask about me. In other words, what's he want? He wants money. Well, why should I give it to him? Well, there's a core thing that we have as human beings is we seek thoughts and opinions. And what's my shout-out group back there? The Ashleys and Janet. The Ashleys and Janet. It's about, the core, finding out what it is you want, and then think about why should they give it to you? Why should they give it to you? And this guy, and seeking thoughts and opinions is a good way to do that. If he had, and I love just phraseology is so important in this. He could have done the exact same story, exact same thing, and he could have said, I was just in a car accident downstairs. I don't have enough money to get my, to pay the doctor this $8 extra. Instead of asking me for $8, if he had said, what do you think I could have done? What do you think I can do about it? He's now seeking my thoughts and opinions, and human beings, we have this incessant need to give our thoughts and opinions. We love to advise, because then it's all about us. Our brain rewards it with dopamine, oxytocin, the bloodstream, serotonin. All these things are going on. And so if he sought my thoughts and opinions, I now am emotionally more vested in how to solve his problem. It's harder for me to say no because I'm kind of verbally engaged with this and I have a vested emotional interest in it. Do you see that? One such little turnarounds, and then you could even ask me some more, well, how did you come up with that? Are you in the medical field? You must be in the medical field. Intentional misstatement. And then you'll find out all kinds of information that way. All of it if he had just switched it around and sought my thoughts or opinions on things. I know, I really way overthink these things. I'm sorry. So here's my objectives. I want to uncover with you all today. Discuss five-step model for trust, influence, and building communities. By the way, I'll leave some time at the end for questions, but feel free to interrupt and derail me. It's really not hard, and I don't mind it at all. Identify and build upon which you already know. I really harp on this because I'm hoping that you're going to see exactly what you're already doing really well. I love that aspect of it because, again, who's it not about? It's all about you. It's not about me. I'm going to tell you why you're already great, hopefully, and most importantly, because this is what you all do for a profession, it's really important to be able to pass your skills on to others. Because then you're in a position to, really populate the world with people that are really into taking good care of people and building communities. So not only is it, you'll be able to do that, hopefully you'll be able to pass it along. Oh, and this is I tried looking for Monet in a paint by number because it's a little frame. I like breaking down the subjective art form into a paint by number because that is part of being able to pass it along and being able to do things much more consciously. When I got my first office, when I got out of the Marine Corps and the FBI, was in New York City and worked in counterintelligence there. And when I got there in the late 90s, we had 5 really senior agents on our squad, and they all had been like 25 years in the FBI, all working the same thing. These guys are the masters, of getting people to do things, finding out information, you name it, they were the masters. And if you sat there and didn't, get in their way for about 12 months, one day they might come up to you and say, okay, come along with me, boy, we're going to go talk to someone. And I'd say, okay, what are we going to do? And he goes, just watch, it's going to be magical. By the way, this is the Jedi for Sergeant George you're looking for. Oh, who has that as a part-time Sith Lord? I saw that. Someone had that on their Twitter account. So anyway, yes, this is for Jedi mind tricks. All right, so he said, just watch, it's going to be magical. And so we sat down with a gentleman at lunch, never met him before. We're hoping to develop a good relationship with this guy that could be helpful, mutually beneficial. And John said maybe, and that's my partner, my friend, John said maybe 3 or 4 words, and then the other guy just went off to the races. Blah, 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 blah. John would throw in how'd you come up with that? Ooh, that's pretty cool. Why'd you decide to do that? When did you decide to do, so just little open-ended how and whys here and there. The guy's doing all the talking. 2 hours later, the guy says to John, so John, how can I help you? I said, wow, that was easy. I said, John, how'd you do that? He goes, it's just magical. And so what happened was, a number of years later, getting on our team and then going down to Quantico, they asked me to teach this stuff, the interpersonal stuff. And I said, all right, come with me, watch what I do. And they said, no. Adult education now, you got to be able to articulate it. Break it down, break the steps down. So that's what this is. This is taking that art form that we all have of interpersonal skills and making it a paint by number. That's what I hope to do in 35 minutes. I'm going to also, I apologize, I might start rushing at times. I've condensed a lot of material into a short amount of time for y'all. So really, it's all about brain rewards. There's so many ways you can frame this. I can frame it for the super altruistic spirituality side. I can frame it for the pure neuroscience of what's going on side and biology and neuroscience of what's going on in the brain, because it's all the same. But it's basically what we want to do is, what I want to do in every situation is I want to get your brain to reward you for engaging with me. And there's a few simple core principles of this. and that is, one, make it all about you. Some good research was done, so it's no longer anecdotal. Back in Harvard, I think it was the spring of 2012, is it 2011 or 2012, and it was a bunch of neuroscientists and psychologists, and that's a good thing, too, about psychology and neuroscience right now. They're really starting to come together, so there's a lot of science backing up on this, what's going on. And what they did was, they ran a bunch of tests, and what they found is that human beings, on average, everyone varies a little bit, we talk about, and they said talk about themselves, but I kind of expanded about, we talk about our own priorities and interests roughly 40% of every day. And during that 40% of us talking about our own priorities, there's dopamine being released in the brain. That's one of the feel-good neuroreceptors. Dopamine, oxytocin in the bloodstream, serotonin, all the things that make us feel good. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, and talking about myself. It's all doing the same thing in the brain. And so basically, the core of all of it is, and this is how you can do things on the fly without even strategizing ahead of time. If I just suspend my own ego and my own need to talk about my priorities, my 40%, and just give it over to you, you're going to start trust. Because their brain is now going to reward them for engaging with you. It's really that simple. I mean, who's ever been in a conversation where either you or they had to leave in like 5 or 10 minutes, and you found yourself still there 30 or 40 minutes later? Someone's drugs were going. Absolutely. And what happens is all of a sudden, if you're really good at this, or the other person is, and all of a sudden that gets cut off, it's, you kind of get a little bit dazed, and you kind of wander away. This happens to my wife all the time. She's a master validator of other human beings. If we're going to have someone over the house or something, I'll call someone on the phone, and I'll say, hey, we're having a party for Super Bowl this weekend. If you want, why don't you bring some wine and chips? Sound good? Okay, great, bye. My wife, 1 hour. She's going to spend that hour talking about you, talking about your family, and validating you, non-judgmental. And the key here is non-judgmentally. Human beings love to judge. They love to place these value judgments, their own values. As soon as you do you think that's going to build trust or no? No. And it can be very, very difficult. I have worked on some amazingly difficult cases with some human beings that have made some really poor choices on how to treat other human beings. That's as much as I'll get into it. And yet you have to find a way to non-judgmentally try to understand their point of view and their context. Because if you cannot, why would they ever want to do anything for you? Why would they want to tell you more? Why would they want to be engaged with you? Take that time to understand how that human being sees the world. Because just because you don't understand and you're forming your own judgments on them, you can be completely off on how it is they arrived at theirs. Take that time to find it out. So, brain rewards. Quick story. This is all about my wife. This is one of her favorite things. I'll get into it a little while later. But yeah, candied apples for some people. My wife's favorite food. When we started dating, I asked her, what's your favorite food? And she said carnival food. And that was the oddest answer I'd ever had. And it still holds true today, 21 years later. This is our Christmas pilgrimage down to Busch Gardens Christmas Village every year to get the carnival food. All right, so here's a quick anecdote on this whole ego suspension thing. So find out what that is that they want, then help them achieve it, but you got to do so with ego suspension. If I could impart anything else, it's the importance of suspending your ego. Easiest thing to say, absolutely the hardest thing to do. Why do you think it's the hardest thing to do, especially under stress? What happens when we're under stress? Get what? Self-defense. And what kicks in during self-defense then? You can't be selfish, actually, because our ego says got to take care of number one. We get emotionally hijacked. And when we're emotionally hijacked, are we thinking clearly? No. Now here's the key. If you can recognize what you do and how you react under stress, and you sensitize yourself, I call it my green tundra effect. Green tundra effect, you say, Robert? Yes, green tundra effect. Who's ever bought a new car, and the day you bought that car, you start seeing it everywhere? Magical, isn't it? That's what I'm hoping to do with all this. I'm going to give you the green tundra effect on everything. If you can recognize what you do under stress, you can stop the mouth from engaging. If you can stop that and you can actually start cognating what's going on, that's when you're going to really be effective. Life is a norm. It kind of goes around like this, and all of a sudden you get a blip. Recognize a blip for what it is. And as soon as I get a blip, I go, ooh, science experiment. And that's what this one thing is all about. So my father-in-law, he passed away suddenly, coming up almost 2 years ago now. And they live down in Florida now. I'm originally a New Yorker. Dave and I had a lot in common. We talked about New York. And First of all, he was a great guy. I've been married for 21 years. Their families got along great, and this guy was great. So they lived down in Florida, and he had some dialysis, but he's still in really good health. And so he'd gone in for a dialysis that day, and the nurse said, "Joe, your vitals are just a little off. So we're going to call an ambulance, bring over to the hospital, just check things out." Well, ambulance comes, and he gets in the back. My mother-in-law is waiting. 15 minutes later, the tech comes out and says, "We're sorry, he's gone." Massive heart attack in the ambulance. Dude was going that day. No ifs, ands, or buts. So it was meant to be. And so the whole family goes down to Florida. And now my wife's family is half Irish, half Italian. My father-in-law was the second to last Italian. And so all the other Irish are there. Now I'm going to not stereotype anyone except my wife's family. These guys are professional, fun-loving, big Irishmen. And they really fun Irishmen. And so we get together at this Italian restaurant the night before my father-in-law's funeral. And there's about 25, 30 family there. And you got big long tables set up. I thought we had the entire side of the restaurant to ourselves, and we didn't. And what had happened was we were there for about an hour or two, the Irishmen, and they're all, I know I'm a big strapping guy, but they're all like 6'4", 6'5", and they had been having a good time so far. And they're yucking it up, and they're doing their things. And so what had happened was there's an elevated booth behind us. You know how they got the kind of the main dining floor, and you got like a one-step-up booth? Kind of visualize that. So I was sitting over there, kind of around the side of the table. I'm talking to my cousins, elevated booths here. All of a sudden, out of the blue, I get a wham on the back of, like the back of my arm, like a good, powerful hit. And as I'm turning to see what this was, I'm scanning, and I see my wife's cousins going. They're getting ready. They want to see what the FBI, former Marine guy is going to do with his pinkies. And so as I'm turning, I said, "I'm setting goals and objectives now." I immediately go, science experiment. I'm not kidding, because because this is so anti-me. It's so anti-intuitive, because the first thing you want to do is you want to lash out verbally, you want to confront, because I'm right, you're wrong. This is our human nature. If you can suspend that need, you're going to win. Because if you set your goals and objectives, and you just communicate with them the way they want to be communicated with in terms of their priorities, they're the ones that are emotionally hijacked, and you're going to get what you need accomplished too. And so I'm turning, and so I set one objective. I got to de-escalate them. I'm turning now, and so now I see the guy here, and here's what he looked like. He had a very nice shiny head. He was wearing what we affectionately call in New York and where I live in Virginia, it was a tank top, a white tank top. Call it a wife beater. Sorry. He had tattoos all up and down. He's all muscled up. I'm in my mid-40s. He's a little bit older than me. And he's sitting there like this. He's snarl. He's like all pumped up. Now, no wedding ring. I noticed all this in a second. It's really neat. And so my second objective was de-escalate him. And he's sitting there with his date who looked just like him, except long blonde hair and no wedding ring also. So now I have my objective set. And also now, Robin is a very humanistic, altruistic guy these days. But you know what? My father-in-law's funeral tomorrow, and you're just kind of being an ass. So I want to jam him a little bit too, but it can't be all about me. It's got to be all about them. And so what I did was, first of all, what do you think his objectives are? Just from my first initial take, what do you think some of his priorities and objectives are? Show off for the date? Absolutely. So can I confront him and belittle him? Would that be effective or no? Now, if my objective is to fight and make myself feel good for about 30 seconds, then that's an appropriate thing to do. But my objective is de-escalation, and maybe a little So this is what, so these are conscious thoughts that are going through my mind. All right, so absolutely, make him look good in front of his date. Now, the other thing I never do anymore, too, is I never pay attention to how the content's delivered. I listen to the content itself, because we all have different ways we communicate. Some people are very, very detail-oriented. Some people are more theme-based. Some people are very direct. And some people are very much more slow and methodical. And so I really take all that for a grain of salt, because that's just how you prefer to interact with the world. And I'll adapt to you, because it's all about you. And so I didn't look at how it came across. I looked at the content. So what did he say? What was his problem? Yeah, we're loud. Well, actually, what he said, he hit, and he says, what the hell are you doing? You're ruining our day here. You're loud as hell. Can't you shut the hell up? And I was like, ooh, content. Let's look at the content. So he's sitting here today, and the first thing I did was this. What am I doing? Now, it wasn't turning my back on. I kind of bladed away from him. I'm trying to get his context. All right, here's what you're saying. Let me see. Now, a lot of people said, Robin, I'm a big believer in just agreeing with someone. If that accomplishes, my goal, that's not compromise, and that's giving you what you need so I can accomplish my goal. But I never just agree, because it can be, as I've just said that, yeah, you're right, buddy. That's patronizing. But what I do is I validate his thoughts and opinions first, then I will go ahead and agree. So that's what I did. I non-verbally validated. I looked, took it in. He's right. This was ruining his evening. And I just, again, content aside, he has no idea about my context, no idea what's going on. And so the first words out of my mouth turned back to his, you are so completely right. First words out of my mouth. I am so sorry that we're ruining your evening. Now, no one ever wants an excuse no one ever wants an excuse, because then it's all about you. They just want to be right. Now, and so I really took a risk here. I was going to throw in what I call a factoid and see if it floated. And so I said, you're so completely right. I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell my family to calm down. We'll quiet down. My father's funeral's tomorrow morning. I'm going to go talk to the manager over here and see if he can do something to make it up to you guys, all right? And so as soon as I said my father's funeral's tomorrow morning, his face goes white. And I go, ooh, good, we're game on. and so I now leave him. I don't talk to my family. Screw this guy. I go talk to the manager. I said, I am so sorry. First of all, let me thank you. I said, you really accommodated my family very well. My father's funeral's tomorrow morning, and your whole staff has just done a tremendous job. But I want to really deeply apologize. I think we've really inadvertently really ruined one of the evenings for one of your customers, and I would hate for you to lose business over me. Totally ownership. Me, all wrong. It's all my fault, right? Because that's self-deprecation. Self-deprecation the science proves self-deprecation, as long as that you're not a bumbling idiot, very good for trust, especially if you get someone to laugh a little bit along the way, fantastic for trust. So as long as you're not a bumbling idiot. If you're a bumbling idiot and self-deprecate, you're just kind of confirming you're a bumbling idiot. And so he's like, and I said, is there anything you think you can do for him? I'd love to pay for some free coupons or something. He goes, oh no, I'll go take care of it. We're so sorry for your loss. He then goes up to the guy and starts handing out free coupons. I now go back to them again, as I'm thinking to myself, what more could I do to kind of really take this over the top? And I go up to, and I'm so sorry to interrupt you guys one more time. I've talked to my family, and I would like to buy you a round of drinks for your inconvenience. And the guy's like this. He goes, we're so sorry for your loss. We've already bought a round of drinks for your whole family. I was like, oh, thanks. Yeah. Ego suspension. That is not what Robin 20 years ago would do. It's because I recognize when it's going to happen. I recognize emotional hijacking. I love thinking through how to interact with people, because it's all about trust. And I got to figure out, what are you all about? How can I make this all about you to accomplish? Basically, it's understanding what their goals and priorities are and aligning mine with theirs and putting theirs ahead of mine. Whoever saw the old show Miracle on 34th Street? What did Macy's do? Sent them the gimbals, and what did they do? Everyone started buying at Macy's. It's the same principles. You all know this. Everyone knows these principles. They're so simple and easy, but our egos and our genetic and biological coding start pulling us away from it, especially as we get under stress, or we get under timelines and everything. No, those are the times to really employ them the most. I help people strategize emails at work. Magic stuff happens. You don't have to be right. Who cares? Let them feel like, if you identify that someone needs to feel like they're in charge and that they're right, why not? Absolutely. If it accomplishes my goal. I have simple goals where I work. Leave me alone and let me help people who want to be helped. How do I get people to leave me alone? It's easy. My bosses, when they first get assigned, I said, what are your goals and objectives? How can I help you with them? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Are you looking to get promoted? Great. My job is to help you get promoted. You need to change something to get promoted, put it on your resume? That's what I'm here to do. Who wouldn't want that working for him? Absolutely. I am here to, at a certain point in life, you get to the point where, like, I've realized that I've achieved everything I'm going to achieve. I'm here to help everyone else, because everyone says, how'd you get in charge of the FBI's behavioral analysis? Dude, it was a complete mistake. I have failed everything I wanted to do, and I wound up here. So I'm left helping everyone else trying to achieve their goals and dreams. Ego suspension, the hardest thing. Got to make sure I leave time for questions. All right, discovering the need. I kind of talked about this at the beginning, discovering the need. Realizing that what I project to the world is not necessarily, what I think I project to the world is not necessarily what the world sees. How many people wake up in the morning and say, okay, today I'm going to be an ass? But somehow that comes across to people. We have this incongruence between that which we project and that which the world sees. If you can really, the better you understand what you truly project to the world and how the world sees you through the other's context and lens will help you understand better how to integrate with it. I got to tell you, when you first start doing this, it's going to be painful and it's going to hurt. Because when you start realizing what a jerk you are in certain areas or how bad you actually are in certain areas, it's a real growth moment. But it's a fantastic way to understand, how to not make it about you, to spend your own ego, and really start empowering others. Because as soon as you start building others up, what do they want to do? They want to reciprocate. It's because the other thing that's really powerful about this is I keep focusing on how to get the other person's brain to reward them with engaging with you by making it all about them. When you're successful at doing this, what do you think is going on in your brain? Same thing. And so by taking care of others, you're actually taking care of yourself. That's why, we were talking about it, with the Ashleys. It's positive social interaction is the number one thing for life longevity. It's number one thing for happiness. And so when you're positive and you engage people in this way, as I was marveled with David, setting up the whole Facebook page, all the positive energy, all this validation he gives all the speakers. I mean, that is, why am I here for free? He's good. Because he's given me that. He's given my brain, what it needed. And that's what you all do as community managers. Self-awareness. Yeah, my in-laws. Oh, this is a neat experiment. So I got a friend who's a performance artist. And so he wanted to see what was projected by the world. So he goes down to the streets in Fredericksburg and he just gives for free. No, he's not allowed to speak. He doesn't take donations. But he uses nonverbals alone. He's handing out little flowers he had made. Paper flowers. He did it looking like a homeless guy, and then he did it dressed up like this, just looking at the science and experiment. How does the world perceive you, and what are they willing to accept from you? It's a fascinating experiment. Green tundra effect, sensitize you to what you're already doing. All right, so the first thing is your goal. When you're working in your own communities, what's your goal? I say that, but a lot of times when I'm asking people this question, they start kind of fumbling around. You got to lock it down. You really have to understand and make it the root of get it to the most basic, simple principles you can. A lot of times, especially when dealing with personal stuff, it's peace and joy, really. Because I want to create peace and harmony in my life. And so, how can I do that? And so first lock down the things. And we do it everywhere. These are my bosses, before, what's my goal with them? Leave me alone and let me help people who want to be helped. This is the airport. Yesterday, it was a couple weeks ago, flight cancellations. This is a very unhappy woman right here. What's her goal? To get out of there, right? If your goal is to get out of there, should be treating people poorly that are paid to help you, as opposed to someone like me helping them and validating what a great job they're doing trying to help people. Guess who got booked on the next flight out? Not my objective. My objective's secondary. My primary goal is to help them make themselves feel better about a situation that they're in, and then if it comes back to me, great. If not, that's fine too. No harm on my side. I would work with my teenagers all the time, and just in any situation, identify that goal, and that's the first step. Second is, why should they? If my goal is to sell something, why should they buy it? If my goal is to, we had just real briefly, we had this case where a case agent called me up and said, hey, Robin, we got an espionage subject. He's arrested, he's waiting sentencing, and he's pled out. He's agreed to talk and cooperate and for a reduced sentence from 15 years to 10. And I said, great, what's the problem? And he goes, he's talking, but he's saying nothing of value. I said, all right, so let's do this process. I said, all right, so what do you want to know? And he goes, I want to know, bump, 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 bump. I said, great, it's the first step. I said, second, why should he tell you? And he goes, because he's looking at 15 years if he doesn't. I said, well, how's that working for you? He said, it's not. I said, then you haven't identified why he thinks he should tell you. And that's the key. Not why you think someone should take an action, why they think they should take an action. So your entire existence from this point on, as soon as you identified your goal of an action you want someone to take, you want someone to join your community. Why should they? How's it going to help them? How's it talk in terms of them? People ask me this all the time. Well, what about the 1-minute elevator speech about yourself? Well, if it's all about you, who cares? If you can talk about all about you in terms of how it can help someone else's business, sure, because then it's all about helping them. When I applied to my job where I currently work, I knew exactly what they are looking for their programs. I didn't tout myself. I touted how I can help them with their programs based on my background. I mean, doesn't that make sense? That people just want stuff that's going to help them. So you understand, why should they, from their perspective? And in order to do that, the first step is to understand their priorities. Wants, dreams, goals, aspirations, short-term, long-term. Sometimes you don't think anyone has priorities because they're so happy with what they have. Stability is a priority. So you can use that, utilize that. So it's understanding that. Because when you're doing this, when you're understanding someone's priorities, who's to focus on? Them. And is their brain rewarding them for that? Absolutely. Because I am not talking about myself whatsoever. I am 100% trying to understand them, their priorities, their goals, dreams, and aspirations. And when I'm doing this, what I'm trying to do is I'm saying, okay, how can I align my skills or my product or my goal and objective to help them with their priorities? I'm not doing it yet, but I want to understand where they're coming from because that's them as a human being. And I'm doing so, again, non-judgmentally and validating who they are as human beings. The choices they made, being interested in who they are. And as I'm doing that, I'm gaining context. How do they see the world through their optic? Their generation, location of the country, the demographic, it is also vastly different. Just the generational stuff. Are there any baby boomers in here born 1945 to 65? Okay, a few. Three significant events during your early child years growing up. Kennedy assassination, always top 3. What else? Vietnam War, 9/11's later on, that's a millennial. Landing on the moon, always top 3. Where's my Gen X? 65 to 85. I can't believe there's so few of us in this room too. Okay, same question. Challenger, always number 1, absolutely. Got Challenger. Yeah, Iran-Contra affair, Watergate, Iran hostage situation. So baby boomers got a lot of loyalty to structures and institutions, organizations. Movies at the time reflected. It's always John Wayne, white guy coming in and save the day on the cowboy. That's it. Generation X, take it up next generation, and you got edgy skepticism because total failure in government systems. Gen X is first generation of latchkey kids. Because there's no such thing as daycare. What the hell's daycare? You got home and you took care of yourself. You drank from fire hoses, we raided refrigerators, we shot BB guns at each other, and somehow some of us survived. Then we raise our kids, we don't let them do any of that. We lock them down. And then the millennials, for my millennials, born 85 and up, significant events? Yep, 9/11. What are some other ones? Internet, that's a technology thing. And that's a good point. All the other generations, how old were you when it was invented? Millennials, how old were you when you're allowed to use it? Very vastly different. So each generation looks at the world very differently because of these optics. Movies of the Gen Xers compared to the baby boomers, Home Alone, War Games, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's all the teenagers got it because their parents are idiots. Complete flip-flop. Also, relationships are different now. The relationship I have with my kids, I have 2 teenagers in high school, completely different than my parents. I don't think my parents ever knew where the hell I was for 90% of the time. Gone. Probably a good thing too. My kids, what are you kidding me? They ask to do everything. But the context. This is a good example. This is my son and my wife. Is this a big deal to Kevin? And look at her. And I love the street art that illustrates the same types of things. So understand their priorities and their context. And no matter what, I do so much. I train agents this way. I train sales teams this way. I train absolutely everything the same way, and I embody this myself. No matter what, if you do not get what your goals are in that first meeting, the second meeting, who cares? Number 1 goal is always to leave them feel better for having met you. And there's some outlawed words that I never believe in and I'll never use. And I only use it in training or talking situations. Manipulation is totally outlawed in my entire vocabulary and never allowed to do it. Influence and leadership are fine. Can anyone tell me a real basic difference between influence and manipulation? Intention, absolutely. And not just intention, but with manipulation, that's I win, and I win first, and you're going to lose. And tomorrow morning, you can have buyer's remorse, or maybe even sooner. You think you have no referrals, no nothing, and definitely no community. As opposed to influences where if you put them first, all their needs, wants, and priorities first, and they leave feeling better for having met you, even if they don't want to take the action, right now, what you're looking for, that's fine, absolutely. That is all I ever look for, because what we do is always preach is the only goal of every meeting is get a second meeting. The only goal of every second meeting is get a third meeting. So eventually one day they'll say, how can I help you? Because everyone's got a different threshold for trust and how long it takes them to establish it. But if I keep demonstrating through my actions that I'm always putting your priorities, goals, and objectives ahead of mine, eventually it might come around. And if not, That's still fine. And that's the hard part to realize, and it's so anti-intuitive towards bottom line type companies, but it's really what makes companies prosperous and makes anyone prosperous. I can tell you, I've never been happier and more content in my life than I am now. And it's because I put everyone else's needs ahead of mine. And it doesn't seem right, especially there's no doubt. I'm looking at my background, it's ridiculous. Type A to extreme has nothing to do with how I roll, not even close. Big thing is manage expectations, and I think that's what that really leads into is that, it'd be great if you want to, come along with me with what I'm trying to accomplish, but if not, that's fine too. Because every human being is so different. Every human being's got a varying degree of how effective different things will be with them. Every human being defines trust a little bit differently, and that's fine. You got to manage those expectations. I put this, it's the last thing in my 10 steps because, not these 5, but my original 10s, because it's my wife. My wife is, as I said before, she, as some of you all, I guarantee you do these things very naturally, but these are the things you're doing along when you're doing it naturally. What'll happen is after that, an hour on the phone, she'll get off the phone. I thought it was a great conversation, and she'll say, "What the hell's wrong with them?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "They never asked me one thing about me and my family." I said, "It's because you're working it too good." When you get really good at doing this, the expectation is reciprocity. No way. And it's funny, just working with some great behaviorists I do, you'd think that, if you're talking with someone that has, that is so into this as well, that, you take turns. And that's generally what I do. I have no problem if someone wants to ask me about me. Hell, I love talking about me, and it's a great topic. But I'm very conscious of it, and I generally have about a 3 to 5 minute time limit of where all of a sudden my bells start going off and I'll bounce. And when I'm working with team members, so I'm figuring, okay, here's your 5 minutes, and I'm waiting for it to come back. Nope. It'll just go. And that's the other thing, too, listening. I don't have it on here, but listening is so critical. And it's so easy to remember all the finer details about the human beings you're interacting with if you do one thing. What do you think that one thing is? Active listening, and you have nothing to say. Normally when two human beings are interacting, it's like you come up with something you want to say, and all of a sudden, within a couple seconds, I know what I want to respond with. I get some ideas, right? And so we're kind of half listening to you. I'm really being patient, some more than others, to wait to tell you what I want to say, my priorities. My dopamine wants to go, right? I'm not listening. I challenge you with this. Here's a great thing I challenge you with, besides ego suspension, and this is part of it. Next time you have that impulse in a conversation with responding with something, toss it. Get rid of it. You have nothing to say. Think to yourself, now pay attention to what they're saying, and say to yourself, pick a topic. The world always, every human being gives you a buffet to talk about. It's amazing. And if they bring it up, it's something they want to talk about. I gave a talk day before yesterday, and within the first couple minutes of the community I work in, in building where I work, she told me about how she had just recently been remarried, and I heard the word widower in there. You brought it up. I said, if you don't mind talking, tell me. I said, what happened? And she'd been married for 27 years. Her husband went in for knee surgery. They over-medicated on pain pills, and he died in the hospital. And she wound up getting just remarried 7 years later to one of their best friends. They all went to the same church together. Why? I had nothing to say. You brought it up, and all I'm doing is, now here's the challenge. Bounce back to them. You have nothing to say, and pick a topic that comes up. And ask yourself, what do I want to explore? Ask a how, when, or why question, non-judgmentally, of just, wow, how'd you come up with that? I did it with the Ashleys. I don't know anything about this, what you all do for a living. I was asking, how'd you get into this line of work? Because then it starts talking about that. You remember everything from that conversation at that point. Because again, it's not about you and what you want to say.